Hello everyone, back to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video, which will take us around the 16th of March, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles running to around a couple of weeks. Have a look at CFS at the end of the video for April. We're coming up right at the very end of the video. We'll begin though with what's happening in the stratosphere over the Arctic and the North Pole. So I'll get on with that for you very shortly. Just say that the first video released today was, of course, January Friday. That's a month ahead look ahead with Japanese and CFS beauty bonds taking us through the rest of March. Have a look at January Friday and see what's going on there. So this is the latest in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole from the Japanese Meteorological Agency. The grey line is a trend line. Of course, at this time of year, temperature should now be lifting up in the stratosphere. We are moving past the winter, starting ahead into the northern hemispheric spring. Will take a long time to warm the stratosphere up, of course. Still going to be very cold at around minus 50 in the beginning of March. So the trend line shows that we should be moving temperature upwards. We have actually seen a bit of a lift up in the temperature at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole over the past few days. So back around sort of the third week of February was down here around minus 70. Now we've lifted the temperature up to around minus 65. Or minus 55, something like that. So that's lifted the temperature up quite a bit, actually, over the past week or two. But we are still a little bit colder than average at 10 HPA. We're still a little bit under that grey line. I think the temperature will gradually start to lift up now as we move through the spring. It doesn't look like we're going to get a sudden stratospheric warming at any point. It just looks like we will see a gradual lift up in the temperature, as you would expect. Cyclically, really, at this point of the year, expect the temperature to gradually lift upwards, and it seems like that's what's going to happen, really. If we go a bit lower down to 30 HPA, we can see that there the temperature is still extremely cold. This is going down closer towards the troposphere. So at this point of the year in March, we should be seeing the temperature at 30 HPA around minus 60. Where the temperature actually is still at minus 80, and that's where it's been through most of this winter. We did get a bit of a tick up there at the beginning of February, but you'll see overall the black line has been trending around or under minus 80 through most of this winter. That is still where it is. That is exceptional. That would be a record-breakingly cold temperature at 30 HPA for early March. I would struggle, I think, to imagine many years that have a temperature as cold as that, minus 80 at 30 HPA. So although the temperature is beginning to lift up right at the top of the stratosphere at 10 HPA, lower down towards the troposphere, still an extremely cold temperature. Again, look where we should be at this point compared to where we are down here. That is a huge temperature difference. And that is where the polar vortex is sort of rooted between the stratosphere and the troposphere. And when you get a very, very cold temperature like that, around 30 HPA, then this is going to be a signal for an intense polar vortex. That's what we've had throughout this winter. We have had a very intense stratospheric polar vortex, which has driven in the westerlies. It's acted as the engine to drive in the westerlies and the areas of low pressure. So this is one of the reasons, anyway, we have had such an exceptionally unsettled westerly and zonal winter, and still it continues on into the spring. Now, as the temperature gradually starts to lift up at 10 HPA, so we should also see a gradual lift up in the temperature at 30 HPA. So I'll be surprised if we can maintain the temperature at minus 80 for much longer. I think we will see a gradual sort of rise of the temperature. Again, I don't think it'll be a dramatic sort of lift up. It'll be a very gradual sort of increase in the temperature, purely due to the fact that we're going into the spring. The sun, it will soon be on the equator, and then we'll return into the northern hemisphere. Days will become longer than nights, and so just purely due to that, we will start to lift the temperature up at all levels of the atmosphere at the latter point of March, and as we move through into April and May and then on into the summer. So I think the temperature is not going to get any lower than this. It should gradually start to increase, but that is still an exceptionally cold temperature of 30 HPA, and that will continue for the time being anyway to keep the polar vortex well and truly in business. So this is the temperature forecast from the GFS model for 10 HPA right at the top of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. So we've got these blue colours, of course. These are the cold temperatures still continuing at 10 HPA in the stratosphere, around minus 60, something like that. So if we go back to 10 HPA on this chart, we can see that, yes, the temperature is lifting up back towards trend, and we see that within this chart as well. If we run through and see what the GFS is forecasting happens, so overall we keep temperatures around maybe a little bit colder than average at 10 HPA. Certainly no sign of a dramatic increase in the temperature, just with time as we move through into the middle of March, and then beyond it we see the temperature slowly begin to lift up. Notice a little bit of green starting to appear there within the blue colours, just again telling us that the temperature is just gradually, slowly lifting up, as you expect through the spring. But even as we get towards the 22nd of March, as far as we can go with GFS, the blue colours are still there, so we still have pretty cold temperatures at 10 HPA, just gradually lessening, really, as we move further on through the spring. But certainly no sign of a dramatic end via a sudden stratospheric warming to these cold temperatures and to the polar vortex. Now, of course, as we've had a very strong polar vortex this winter, we have also had a very strong zonal wind. So this is showing, this from weatheriscool.com, this is showing the strength of the zonal winds at 10 HPA in the stratosphere right now and back through the winter. Loads of coloured lines with this, but most important one, I suppose, is the black line, because that's the trend. So you can see that as we move into the winter, zonal winds are strengthening. That's as the stratospheric polar vortex powers up, of course, as we get into the winter, and then through the latter winter into the spring, the zonal wind starts to weaken, the zonal wind starts to drop out, so the temperature should be lifting up in the stratosphere, so the zonal winds of the polar vortex should be easing off the gas and should be weakening. The blue line shows how zonal winds have been performing through this season, and on regular occasions, really, the zonal wind has been not only stronger than average, but also reaching record-breaking levels. Now, at the beginning of the winter, right at the very start of December, this blue line shows that the zonal wind did actually go a bit weaker than average. That's the only time it happened through the winter. Actually, most of the winter had a very strong zonal wind, at times record-breakingly so. We see from these peaks just here, but at times we did reach date records anyway for the strength of the zonal wind at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole. Where we are right now is again at a record-breaking strong level, so the record-breaking strong zonal wind and polar vortex continues. Right now, the zonal wind is at record-breaking strong levels for this point of the year, for like the 5th, 6th of March. The GFS ensembles are forecasting that the zonal wind will slowly weaken over the next couple of weeks, but still staying strong on average. Remember, this is the trend, so sort of for March, this is March just here, for March we should be around there with the zonal wind really. And where we are at the moment is just there, and the GFS ensembles in a couple of weeks' time still have the zonal winds at that level, still well above the black line, still well above trends. So certainly up to the middle of March, probably into the second half of the month actually, these very strong zonal winds are set to continue. So for the time being, for the next week or 2 weeks, as the polar vortex will remain well and truly in business. Now, eventually we are going to see an end to this polar vortex. It has to happen, I mean physically it has to happen due to the increase in temperature that we get as we move through the spring and into the summer. And the way I think this is going to happen is just a gradual decline of the zonal wind as we gradually lift up the temperature. I don't think it's going to happen from anything dramatic now. I don't think it's going to happen through a sudden stratospheric warming. I think it will just happen purely through like the transition from spring, through spring and on into the summer. So eventually the zonal winds will go into reverse. That should happen in April. This is the month of April just here. So solar winds on average reverse around the middle of April, going to reverse in the middle of April. And most of these, the three pink and one blue line, which are from the CFS V2, most of those are going for a reversal of solar winds or sending solar winds into reverse through April. A couple do it a bit later, or at least one does it a bit later. This pink one just here doesn't do it until into May. But you see, but eventually, by the time we get through to May, all four members of the CFS V2 have sent the solar winds into reverse. That will be an end of this polar vortex of doom that we have had all winter. That will be the final end of it. And then we're on into the summer, and in the summer, the polar vortex very much goes away, and we get rid of it for a few weeks anyway as we go through the summer. And of course, as we move into the autumn, late summer into the autumn, the polar vortex will then begin to strengthen again for the following autumn and winter season. So yes, reversal of solar winds being forecast there in April, not happening, I don't think, from a southern stratospheric one, just happening from a gradual weakening of this intense polar vortex that we have had through this season. Something similar happened last winter, actually, and into spring. And what was interesting is that although it was a gradual decline of the polar vortex and a gradual weakening of zonal winds, because it happened from a very high base, from like a record-breaking base, it appeared to have the same sort of impacts on the troposphere over the Arctic. It seemed to have the same sort of impacts as a southern stratospheric one. You remember that last year we did have quite a lot of northern blocking through the early summer, like through May, and particularly in June last year we had a very wet spell that was driven really by northern blocking setting up, and that appeared to happen after we saw a gradual decline in the polar vortex and in the zonal winds following a record-breaking strong zonal wind and polar vortex, like at the end of February and into March last year. So it'll be interesting to see if we have the same sort of impacts this sort of late spring and into early summer. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But for the time being, anyway, certainly for the next week, probably for the next couple of weeks, maybe beyond, the polar vortex remains well and truly in business. Right, so these are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We'll look at Gosforth today. The red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Gosforth, and we're starting off just here, so we're starting off a little bit cooler than average today. We're going to be up and down with temperature over the next couple of days, so we are going to be trading warmer and cooler sectors. As we go to next week, it looks like temperatures more definitively drop, although having said that, the GFS operation run is again, I'm going to show it in a moment, again one of the warmer ensemble members in the extended range, so that one is producing a little bit of spring, but overall it looks like it's staying quite chilly and unsettled through the middle part of March, although we are still in the same broad pan that we've been in all winter, still driving in low pressure. Has turned a bit cooler than it's been through most of the winter. The reason that's happened is that the jet stream has shifted southwards as the Azores high has just weakened a little bit. Precipitation-wise, not too much coming up over the next few days. There will be some rain around over weekend. Saturday night into Sunday looks quite wet. Then early next week could be a little bit unsettled too. Perhaps more in way of wind, though, early next week, rather than rain being the concern for Monday. Looks like, again, more unsettled around the middle part of March, though, just here, which is when we're hoping to start building in some higher pressure, but there's not a great deal of sign of that for Gosforth, anyway, on the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Temperature anomalies from the 6th to the 14th of March, a little bit below average for northern parts of the country, a little bit above average for England and Wales. It's not a big deviation anywhere. Temperatures are going to be quite close to average in the weekend. Notice it's looking very cold up over Iceland, interestingly. They've had a very cold winter, of course, as they often do when we've got a very strong polar vortex. Greenland also has had a very cold winter. And precipitation anomalies, average to probably a little bit wetter than average. So, yes, it looks like up to the middle of March anyway, it continues to be pretty unsettled, particularly for northern and western parts of the country. That's how the GFS is looking for Monday. So on Monday, we're pulling in quite a mild southwesterly wind. So temperatures will feel spring-like through the early part of next week. But it's going to be windy, tight-backed isobars, and there will be rain around as well. Into the middle of next week, while it stays unsettled, just starts to turn colder as winds push out of the northwest again. We had a lot of that through the course of the latter part of this winter. Northwesterly winds could bring wintry showers into northern parts of the country, and just generally quite a chilly feel. Moving up towards day, moving up towards day 10. Sorry about that. What I find as you get towards day 10 is that high pressure begins to strengthen down to our south. Start to get a ridge of high pressure building across France. Low pressure is still going into the north, but at least I've got some drier weather there for England and Wales as we get to day 10, Monday the 16th of March, and probably feeling quite spring-like, I would have thought, close to this ridge in the south as well. Then the high pressure sticks around for a little while before we go to a much more unsettled spell. High pressure then begins to set up towards Greenland and Iceland. Low pressure forms underneath it. So we start to try and pull in a very cold east and northeast wind. I think at this point the 6 o'clock GFS run has probably gone off on a tangent, but it is trying to pull in a very cold east or northeasterly wind. That's how we finish up. We don't quite pull in those cold easterlies actually. We finish up with low pressure down to our south, throwing up bands of rain, and winds from like a southerly direction, so actually quite mild. So there's a little bit of a drier interlude there just after the middle part of March, especially for the south, but overall quite an unsettled 6 o'clock GFS run again today. GM looks like that, so again it's very unsettled as we begin next week. Quite mild, but it will be wet and windy at times as well. Second half of next week stays unsettled, goes a bit cold as winds swing into the northwest. Showers could turn wintry up in the north. And then, as we get to day 10, that's how we're looking on Monday the 16th of March. Still quite unsettled, winds in from the west. Heights trying to rise down to the southwest a little bit. That's how the ECM looks. So again, very unsettled for the early part of next week. Will be quite mild, but it will be unsettled too. Second half next week, we start to pull in these colder northwesterlies again. So showers could turn wintry in the second half next week in the north. All areas looking quite cool and unsettled. By day 10, again, similar to what GFS is showing, just signs that heights are beginning to build a little bit across France. So it's just starting to turn England and Wales a bit dry and probably a bit milder as well. Still looks a bit unsettled up to the north, but by day 10, Monday 16th of March, we have got both the GFS and the ECM today starting to build up some higher pressure, possibly just the first hints that we're going to begin to go into a drier spell for the second half of the month. We have to wait and see, because we know that the 6 o'clock GFS run then eventually turned into a very wet and cool spell of weather by the third week of March, but I think it probably went off on a bit of a tangent with that idea. So this could be the first signs of something drier as we move into the second half of March within the shorter range bottle output. We know that's the way JMA Friday was trending in today's first video update. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which gets us to the 16th of March. We have 22 members of the ECM ensembles at day 10 with a mid-Atlantic ridge and a trough of low pressure across the west of Europe. So they're still going to be very, very unsettled at day 10. That does include the ECM control run as well. Have 17 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure to our north, high pressure to our west and southwest. They're still looking a bit cool and a bit unsettled really with those ones. And then 12, it's a minority option, but it does include the operational ECM run. That's a run we've just been talking about, having more influence from high pressure, beginning to build up this ridge of high pressure close to the country, below average heights out to the northwest. That's the driest option, and it does include the ECM operational run today, run we've just been looking at. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got for the 21st of March. And on the face of it, looks more anticyclonic here. We've got 11 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure, I should say, up to our northeast, low pressure to our southwest. That's turning things drier for many of us, although this low down to southwest could still be bringing rain into south-southeast. 11 with high pressure to our south, low pressure to the north, winds sort of flat westerly. 10 with a Scandinavian high, winds sort of easterly, probably quite chilly but drier. Another 10 with high pressure out to our northwest, probably bringing in a bit of a cold northeasterly. And then 9 with high pressure more or less over the top of the country. That's going to be the most settled option, of course, only 9 doing that. But that's going to be the most spring-like option I would have thought. Still the hints are there, but as we go further on into March, we should see high pressure getting more and more involved. Finally, we have a CFSV2 is forecasting April, so this is a 700 millibar height anomaly for April 2020. It still looks more or less like what we've had through the winter, really. High pressure continues to be, or above average heights, but that is high pressure continues to be sort of to our southwest. Low pressure via the polar vortex still sitting up to the north. The westerlies go on into April with CFSV2 today. Not seeing any to that polar vortex in April. So temperature anomalies remain a little bit above average during April. Of course, westerlies in April are not going to be anywhere near as mild to average as westerlies in January will be. But nevertheless, it's still going for slightly above average temperatures in April. And no real signal for precipitation, a little bit close to average, a little bit above average to our north, a little bit below average to our south, near normal precipitation for April being forecast from the CFS. However, that does look like quite an unsettled 700 millibar height anomaly for April, really. And it just goes on with westerlies, albeit I suppose the Azores high is a little bit stronger there to our southwest than it has been through particularly February. But broadly, it remains for April, if that forecast is right, the same pattern that we've been in since more or less late September, which is high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, and westerlies bring in further bands of rain and areas of low pressure. That's all very speculative, of course. I think coming back to a more immediate time frame, which is the next sort of week to 10 days, up to 2 weeks. So we can say that the next few days are going to remain very unsettled. That probably goes on up to the middle part of the month. Second half of the month, increasing hints for higher pressure. Nothing definitive yet, but within both the shorter range and the longer range, there are a few hints that into the second half of March, things could start drying out, though we may be able to crack on with some proper spring weather and begin to dry out what is a very, very, very sodden landscape. So we shall see, and it will be revealed in the next few weeks, of course. Right, so that's it for the week 10-day video update. Busy weekend of updates coming up. This weekend we've got a weekend forecast, of course, tomorrow, a week 10-day video update as well. Sunday we'll have our first summer analogues update, so that'll be the first video up on Sunday. As well as that, we're going to have Gaz Webby's Sunday Roundup as well, so plenty of videos coming up over the weekend. Hope you're enjoying the content. Please like the videos, give us a thumbs up, let us know in the comments what you're thinking, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll be notified when we upload content that you're enjoying. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.